we're going to go to our second segment. Mr. Adrian Avila is going to be asking the first question.
Okay. Given the recent pedestrians hit by traffic in Amarillo, how do you intend to enforce the current city ordinances that deal with this problem? And we will go with Ms. Tanya Winston. Okay. Okay, are you able to hear Ms. Winston? Okay, given the recent pedestrians hit by traffic in Amarillo, how do you intend to enforce the current city ordinances that deal with this problem?
I think we need to find out the reason for the accidents that are happening. We need surveillance. We need to have make sure that the speed limit is accurate. We need to make sure that the citizens or the people who are driving are paying attention, and you have to have you deal with the consequences. You have to find out the reason and the cause of, was it the sun in the way? Was it too sunny outside and the light was in that driver's way? I think that you need to have better lighting. I mean, like the red lights, the green lights, walk, go, stop, go, walk. All of those things need to be in the city to where people can pay attention more and to keep safe.
Thank you, Mrs. Winston. That's your time. Mrs. Powell, same question to you.
Yes, as mayor, what I would do is work closely with our police department to enforce the codes of speeding, because right now we have citizens who are going at a very high rate of speed, and there's a lot of distracted driving going on also, but we just need to start enforcing those codes and writing those tickets is what needs to happen.
And Mr. Burnett, you're next.
Something that I haven't heard said that I know personally because I worked with them a lot is a lot of these people that are getting run over and killed are homeless people. And the fact is that we had Church Christ Camp. My wife and I personally helped there. And rather than help these people who actually had a camp where they were doing good and they had to pay a little bit of rent and they had to be drug-free and alcohol-free, we closed their camp. We closed the Ice House camp. We pushed them into the streets. So the reason we have more people getting ran over is because we've pushed our homeless people into the roadways, and we don't allow them to, we don't have enough room in the homeless shelter, for one. For two, if you're not married, if you're LGBTQ, any of those things, they won't let you into the homeless shelter. I think the city needs to open their own homeless shelter that doesn't prejudice against people.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. And Mr. Collins, did you? Okay, great.
So in some places, the lighting isn't very good at night. We have people crossing where they shouldn't be crossing. Of course, speed is a factor. On the sides of the road, some of our sides aren't marked and not wide enough, so a lot of people are getting hit by bicycles because there is a certain, from the middle to the side of the street, there's a proper measurement for that, and some of our streets aren't wide enough that they're supposed to be. So it's going to take a combination of city and government to make sure that the streets are properly properly distant enough for safe, and then also educate the people. You know, you can't jaywalk, you need to go to the stoplights and cross at a proper place.
Thank you. And Mr. Stanley.
Thank you for the question. I'd like to address two problems. One is panhandling and people in the roadway. and the other one is pedestrian struck by a vehicle. Now, to my knowledge, we've had 5 fatalities over the recent, I'd say within the last year, and I know the majority of those have been panhandlers that are standing in the roadway or off to the side of the roadway. So we already have an ordinance on the books. I'd like to enforce it. I'd like to help these people that are in the roadway, and I'd like to help our citizens by knowing that we provide resources, and this is not the best way to help them is by giving them cash and encouraging them to stand in the roadway. And then I'd also like to reach out to our retired peace officers that are currently still certified and see if they'd be willing to come back for pay. And we could mobilize them in just a specific task unit that is out there, not harassing in any way, but helping. Hey, you can't stand here. Let me tell you where you can stand. Let me tell you where you can go. These are our resources we already have. And we cannot have small issues that we don't police. Otherwise, we're going to start policing the large issues.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. And would any of the candidates like to give any rebuttals to what has been said in this question so far? Mrs. Winston, go ahead.
I want to say something. I'm a truck driver, and about 10 years ago, I was in another state, and a guy dealing with mental illness jumped in my truck. He ran behind the back wheel, and I hit him. I jumped out, I prayed, and said, "You're not going to do this, not on my watch." Thank God he did not die. When they was able to get him back conscious, I asked him, "Why did you do what you did?" He said, "Because his family did not love him anymore." But he was willing to take his life on me. So my thing is, get to the bottom of it and find out really what's going on in the investigation of it.
Thank you, Mrs. Winston. That is your time. Would anybody else like to respond to what has been said so far? Great. We're going to go to our next question. This question, Mrs. Powell, we're just going straight down the row, so you'll get to answer it first. If elected mayor, would you make it a priority to seize all current and future legal action from the City of Amarillo in the current lawsuit with Alex Fairley that currently resides with the Texas 7th Court of Appeals? If not, please explain your rationale. Mrs. Powell, you have 1 minute.
Okay. On that particular subject, since it is still pending litigation, I don't have any comment on that.
Thank you. And everybody, please keep your heckling till later. Thank you. Mr. Burnett, we're going to go straight down the row. It is your turn. 1 minute.
The only comment I have is I think we've spent enough money on lawsuits, and I think we've already lost that one, and so case closed.
Thank you. And Mr. Don Collins, you are next. Would you seize all action, legal action against Alex Fairley by the City of Amarillo right now?
No. I think he did the right thing. I commend him doing that and suing the city because the voters said no and the city said yes.
Thank you. Mr. Cole Stanley, you're next.
Let me state, as a current city councilman who's still involved in that lawsuit, I as well don't have an opinion. However, as a future mayor and a candidate for Amarillo, I would drop the lawsuit on the appeal with Mr. Fairley and I'd pay his fees. Thank you.
And Mrs. Tanya Winston, you're next.
I feel like he did what he had to do. I feel like that the council members, they went about it. They had a hidden agenda that was just, they just left right out for the citizens. The citizens did not have the opportunity to voice their opinion. They said no, they went around it, and you cannot do that in government. You have to be fair and to find other ways, underhand, hidden agenda, and all this. What you have done, you have put a wall up to where people cannot trust you, and it wasn't right.
Thank you. Would any candidate like to offer a rebuttal to that? Nobody? Great. We're going to go to our next question. This will be asked by Mr. Alex Deonda.
Our enterprise funds have been used for infrastructure improvements for Embassy Suites, Hodgetown, and the Colonnades. Our North Heights properties have been needing improvements for quite some time. In attending several meetings at the Cultural Center in the last 12 months, water pressure is the common theme. The North Heights being one of our oldest communities, what can be done here? Mr. Burnett.
We've been having meetings with North Heights for a very long time. I think it's real simple. What can be done here is we need to stop talking and we need to start acting. We can continue to have these meetings and we can continue to say that we're building a bridge with that community, but what we're doing is just buying time. We're just filling their shoes with sand. And I believe it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to go and we need to focus on that neighborhood. One of the things that I said from the very beginning is I should not be able to drive from different parts of this city and tell that I'm in different parts of this city. It should flow all the way across. And it is unbelievable how bad North Amarillo is. And it's not because the people there don't care, it's because we don't care enough to help those people. And it is time for us to go there and show those people, because I've said from the beginning, this city is only as strong as its weakest link. And so when we are worried about the people with money and not worried about the people with heart, that's what our city's missing. We're missing the heart that's sitting in North Amarillo that we're not paying attention to.
Thank you. Mr. Don Collins, you are next. And yes, let me repeat it real quick. Our enterprise funds have been used to infrastructure improvements for Embassy Suites, Hodgetown, and the Colonnades. Our North Heights properties have been needing improvements for some time. In many meetings, water pressure is the common theme. With the North Heights being one of our oldest communities, what can be done to improve the quality in that area?
There again, parts of the city is being left out to where most of the city that's getting paid attention to is the south side. We need to treat everybody the same. If we hadn't spent some money on some other things, we could have paid more attention to the Northern Heights, and also they're having some problems on the east side. So we need to address that and get that taken care of and get it fixed so where everybody's equal.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Well, I think Mr. Collins and I are doing a good job of showing you how important communication is here tonight. I'm trying to write a few questions down for him, and it's just muffled back here, so he's having a hard time hearing, but appreciate your patience. So I only say that to tell you communication is important, and the North Heights, I do have an idea. I would like to partner with my developer that owns the land to the north of the North Heights. We have a need for housing in that side, in that part of the community. We need water lines ran through that community. We can't fix the entire community all in one swipe, but we could run water mains, and we could then look for grants. I believe if you had a sufficient water supply and a developer that was willing to work with you, that you could look for some grant funding that then would be able to target businesses and individual houses. That's one example of trying to work within your community with what you have versus just raising taxes every time we have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Winston, you are next.
I think it's very important that when you on the council, it is very important that people are more out in the field. When you're more out in the field, you can see what the issues are and the problems are throughout the entire city, throughout the different communities. And most definitely, University North Heights, Miller Heights, Glen Heights, Hamlet, northeast side of town, these communities have been left unattentive. And the reason is because our past council members, I don't want to beat up anybody, but it's right in your face. It's right in your eye. When you go over there, it's almost looking like third war country. And we just need more people that's going to be more hands-on, get more in the field, interact more with the people in the community to find out what their problems is. And the water pressure is a issue over there.
Thank you, Mrs. Winston. Mrs. Powell, you have 1 minute as well.
So the North Heights Advisory Association has been working with the citizens in Amarillo, and as a matter of fact, they have been asking for citizens to come together and participate in that initiative. The city has been working through the North Heights neighborhood on the water pressure issue along with the city, and so a lot of the infrastructure comes through the capital investment plan, so it's all about dollars that are budgeted, but the city has been working diligently with the community, and what the community needs is for the citizens that live in that community to come together and be a part of that process, because each of the neighborhood programs, the citizens drive the process for what they want to see in their neighborhood. And again, the city has to help with infrastructure because that's the government's responsibility.
Thank you. Would anybody like to give a rebuttal or response to anything that's been said? Great. Well, with that, that is the end of segment 2. So you guys aren't